making it. And then at the end, we'll open it for questions that I can just answer through the computer here. So we'll get started, but my name is Stacy Perry Mergenthal. A lot of people know me as Stacy Perry because that's my maiden name. I grew up in Brookings, and I'm really a border hopper between Brookings, South Dakota, and Minnesota. I grew up here, and then I moved to the cities in 1989, and then drove the wrong way down Hennepin Avenue and had a really good time in Minneapolis. You know, it's a one-way, and I didn't know what I was doing. I think I was 17 years old, but I loved Minneapolis, and then I moved back to South Dakota in, I don't even remember when, 1999, and then moved back over by Lake Benton in Minnesota in 2006. I moved back to Brookings in 2016, and then now I'm back by Lake Benton, and that was last fall around Thanksgiving. So I have, even though I live in Minnesota, I have a lot of ties here to Brookings because I did grow up here and have lived here. I have family here. Some are online tonight, which is super fun. So thank you for joining us. And I do have two children, Kalani and Sajan, and one is in Sioux Falls at college, and one is here in Brookings, and my husband, Jason. And I worked a corporate communications job for 13 years. And in that time, about 10, 15 years ago, I started baking and catering some events, graduations, weddings, different things. And I was blogging and writing on the side. And now that's really just what I do for a living, bake and blog and write. And I have a group of lifestyle magazines up in the Twin Cities that I write for. So I keep pretty busy with that, but I love writing. So that's one of my favorite things to do right now. And pretty soon I'll be launching a podcast. So we'll just keep going with whatever we all love and talk about. And most of it has to do with food and baking or trying new restaurants and places in the area. So we'll get moving here on brownies. And I picked these right away just because I've made these black and yellow brownies many times. It's something that I came up with quite a few years ago. It's a mashup of two recipes of brownies that I really liked, and then they were really good. And so I submitted the recipe to a Taste of Home magazine holiday potluck recipe contest. And I had never entered a contest before for recipes, and I won first place. And to be totally upfront with you, that means there was still a grand prize winner. So somebody won grand prize, and I think it was Brussels sprouts. So I don't eat Brussels sprouts, but I eat brownies. They're worth first place, so it's good. You do love Brussels sprouts. Kirsten loves Brussels sprouts. I love broccoli, so it's okay. But if anybody is baking along with me tonight, I just want to mention it probably would be a good idea for you while we're talking here to unwrap the caramels. I don't know if anybody is, but just a point there to unwrap the caramels. That takes a couple of minutes. But the black and yellow caramel brownies, so in the summer of 1990, I was a summer intern at 3M here in Brookings, and we had food days, just like a lot of companies do. And a lady that I worked with, her name was Judy Boz, and she brought in a pan of caramel brownies that were called Yes, Yes Brownies. They had exclamation points on them. They had caramel. They were wonderful. So I've made those many times over the years. And then I had a recipe for yellow bars. I thought, well, wouldn't they be good together? So that's how they kind of came together. Plus, I really like bars. I love bars. I love brownies. I've kind of been hearing lately that it's sort of a Midwest thing. Now, for me, having grown up and only ever living in the Midwest, I didn't realize that maybe it's kind of a Midwest thing. But I do love bars, brownies, blondies. I think, obviously, for the taste, but it's easy to make them. They're one pan. They're versatile, they travel well, they usually mail well, depending on if you're sending something, if they don't have to be refrigerated. Sometimes they can be frozen. Bars are my favorite. People are usually surprised to hear me say that because I'm most known for making my cheesecakes. I love cheesecake, but bars are my favorite. So I think we'll just get started. Are there any questions yet from anybody?
Yet. And I did put the brownie recipe in the chat.
The brownie recipes in the chat.
Right there and follow along if they want.
Okay. And if there are parts, because if there's anything that is off on what we're talking about tonight and what's in the recipe, just you guys make sure that you put it in the chat, because I had to change a couple things over time, and I just want to make sure that it's right so that when you go to your kitchen to bake it, that we have it perfect for you. So first, well, and I brought the book. So I couldn't find the magazine that my Taste of Home, that the recipe was in. I don't know where the magazine is, but it also did end up in the Taste of Home annual recipes for 2022. And so here's my little picture. So I'm proud of it just because I grew up with Taste of Home magazine. That's kind of how I learned, I think, a lot of ways that I do things very down home and casual and not complicated. And it's ingredients that we can find around this area without having to go to a specialty store. So it makes me feel good. And my grandma really liked Taste of Home and Country Woman from that magazine publisher. And so she would have been really proud of me to be in there, I think. So first of all, we're going to take a 9x13 pan. And I usually use parchment paper to line pans. Here's the finished one. But it helps to, it's so much easier to just pull the parchment out onto a cutting board, take it off and cut the bars. You can use foil, but sometimes I worry about foil getting stuck in the little corners when you make bars, and I would hate to bite into that. So I usually use parchment, and I just kind of measure over the top, sort of like wrapping presents, which I'm not the best at, but, and I used to get this pan lining paper that had foil on one side and parchment on the other, so it just really molded right nicely into the pan, and I can't find it anymore. So usually what I do in the beginning stages is just take some of the kitchen clips, hold the parchment in place until I get the first part of the dough in there to hold it better. Otherwise, I don't know how to control it. And obviously, it's not perfect. It's just, you know, in there and nice and flat. So then what we're going to do is, so I like to get those on the stove, get them started melting before I do the chocolate batter on the bottom. To save time, I did unwrap the caramels already. Now, this is one of the smaller bags, 11 ounces of caramels, Kraft, individually wrapped. They do sell a bigger bag, kind of a value size. These have about 36 to 38 in each package, and the bigger ones have about 50. So that's why the recipe kind of varies, because it's fine to have, you know, 36 to 50.
Doesn't matter what brand you buy?
No, and some people actually like to use the caramel bits. So you don't have to do the unwrapping, but for me, there's something about unwrapping those caramels, and I just think that they have a better taste, so it's just preference, but you could do the little caramel bits instead. Yep. Then you want a little can of evaporated milk. Notice I shook it up first. It's good to shake these up. And this is evaporated milk, not sweetened condensed. There's a big difference. And then you just measure out 1/3 cup. And pour it in with your caramels. And the rest that's in this can is 1/3 cup, and that actually is going to go into your yellow batter. So you end up using the whole can, just half and half. So I'm going to get these on, start melting. And I do it on low because last thing you want to do, and yes, I've done this before, is burn it. And you can't do anything with it. You're done. So unless you have another bag of caramels at home and can start all over again, you don't want to burn the caramels. So do it on low, pay attention, stir it every once in a while. That milk starts to get warm and then it starts to melt the caramels, but it does take some time. And so that's why I get it started while I'm doing some other things here so that it can just sit there. Okay, so now we're going to do the brownie batter. The So we're not fancy. We're using box cake mixes. Dunkin' Hines is what I usually buy, but again, it's preference. I was talking to my sister Heidi the other day, and I said I had to change how much butter I put in here because I think that these box cake mixes have gotten smaller in ounces over the years. And so 30 years ago when I was making them, I just think that the boxes were bigger. So I just dumped the whole thing, dry mix, in there. And follow my recipe, otherwise I'm going to get lost here. So we did our caramels and we did our evaporated milk. Now we're going to do the chocolate box cake mix and 1/3 of a cup of evaporated milk. So I was wrong. It doesn't go in the yellow. It goes in the chocolate. And then 10 tablespoons of butter that you melt down, which you can do in the microwave. I like to do it real fast on the stove top, but again, that's your preference. You can do it stove top or in the microwave.
Miss Missy, you were right. Person just looked it up and they did reduce the amount that was in those boxes.
Were they like 18 ounces before?
Yes,
I thought.
They were 18, now they're 16.
And these are actually 15.
Even smaller.
And so I was having trouble with it being very oily and greasy with that. I used to put in 3/4 a cup of butter into this part.
Sure.
I backed it down by 2 tablespoons now because it just was too oily. I thought so. Okay, so we're gonna melt the butter down. There's a lot of steps in this, but if you like baking, it's kind of fun, and I pretty much use everything that can go in the dishwasher. So I love that too, because it's easy to just fill up the dishwasher then and you don't have a lot of cleanup. But I don't use my big electric mixer, my big stand mixer for this recipe. I use my hand mixer when we get to the yellow part, but you could do that by hand too if you wanted to. So just check your caramels. Mine are still solid, but they're starting to get warm. The milk's gonna kind of warm them up. I'll put the oven up, or the stove top here, just a tiny bit, because I'm not really, it's a little bit different. So I want to know, while we're kind of doing stuff here, who online is from like the farthest away. So I'm sure we have people from Brookings, but tell us where you're all from. I have a friend who was in Brookings for a while when we were in middle school together, Jill. She's out in New York, and I want to know if she's here too tonight. This is not a recipe that you want to do if you are completely distracted, you know, because there's a lot of things you have going on, and so you really just want to be able to kind of stay in the kitchen for a while.
Yeah, some people from Minneapolis.
Ooh.
From Brookings.
I will be in Minneapolis tomorrow.
Lake Benton.
Lake Benton, okay. So while I wait for a few of those things, sometimes I'll just kind of get my next thing, you know, something else going. And there's a step here where you're putting a cup of, actually it's 1.5 cups of milk chocolate chips, and you're melting it down into sweetened condensed milk. And so I'm just going to get that kind of set up here. And so the sweetened condensed milk is your, I can't read how many ounces because I don't have my glasses.
There is someone from Fargo too.
Fargo, awesome.
So is this a recipe that you have to follow very much by the book, or? I'm a really bad baker about just guesstimating.
Yeah. So when it comes to some of the things like this, evaporated milk and the sweetened condensed milk, those kinds of things, yes. But if I ended up with another extra handful of chocolate chips by accident in here, it would be okay. And when you come to sprinkle onto the chocolate layer of chocolate chips, like those kinds of things, those are fine if you add extra.
There's a question, is there a specific brand of chocolate chips that you would recommend, or?
Well, when I was younger, single mom, 2 little babies, I had to buy the cheapest possible. I wanted to bake, but I had to watch my spending on ingredients. So I would buy store brand, buy one on sale, Now I do love the Ghirardelli. It's a good brand that I can find around here, and that's my favorite. So the Hershey's are really good too. I'll buy those when they're on sale. I love when those are on sale, but a lot of times I'll buy these bigger bags because I go through so much. So the Ghirardelli here in Brookings anyway, at Walmart, I can get the bigger bags of the semi-sweet and the milk chocolate in the Ghirardelli. So okay, so what I did here was just a step that we'll get to in a little bit, but the milk chocolate chips, the butter, and the sweetened condensed milk are in a pot. They're going to be ready to start melting down here pretty soon. Our butter is ready. We're going to add this butter into that chocolate cake mix that has the evaporated milk. And just stir it up.
So the only thing in there right now is the butter, the evaporated milk, and then the mix.
Yes, let me just double check. So we have the box cake mix, 1/3 cup of the evaporated milk, 10 tablespoons of butter. Yep, melted butter. And because the butter is melted, it's just easy to just stir by hand. So
It smells so good.
Because you can smell the butter.
Yeah.
I sort of accidentally just browned the butter because it was up pretty high. So you're smelling browned butter, which is fantastic. Yes, actually. Okay. So to show the consistency of this, which camera do I show it in? Just so that people can kind of see. It's like a brownie batter, but it's not runny. You can't like pour it out. Thank you. Now I'm going to take I'll probably leave about 1/4 a cup to 1/2. So this isn't a lot, but that's what I'm going to leave in the bowl. That's going to get used for the topping at the very end. And then I just kind of put it in different spots here so that it doesn't just glob in the middle, and then I have to try to spread it out. And I just, with my fingers, as home bakers, obviously we use our hands a lot. I would be using gloves if I were doing this in a commercial kitchen. Sorry if it's kind of noisy, the paper gets crinkly. But that cake mix and what, the stuff that we just mixed in is basically going to make it turn into sort of a fudgy brownie. Is what's happening here. At this point, you're not adding any egg or anything. Check out my caramels here. I just push it down until it seems like it's covered into the corners and pretty even. And now I can take my clips out because it's going to hold up to it a little bit better there. And then you pop this in the oven for 6 minutes. When that comes out, we're going to put chocolate chips over the top and the melted caramel. So now you can kind of see why I only have 6 minutes here in the oven, And so I kind of want the caramels to get melted, but they're still pretty solid, so. I just don't like to do it too high, too fast. I just have had too many times where I burn caramels. Okay. But we can, while that's in there, now we have, remember this little bit left here of the chocolate. And we can get the yellow one mixed up, or at least prepped in the bowl. So another yellow cake mix. 15 ounces, 15.25.
What is the specific brand of cake mix that you prefer?
I go to Duncan Hines. That's just my preference. Again, I suppose people probably really like Pillsbury, and there's different, you know, store brands, and I don't even know what else, but it's one less thing I have to think too hard about when I just know I get Duncan Hines.
I didn't know if it mattered, since some of them have, you know, different levels of butter, different levels of eggs, some of them are oil-based ones.
No, I usually just get the Duncan Hines. Yeah, but have certainly over the years used other ones.
There's a question, unsalted butter or salted butter?
Oh, great question, you guys, because I forgot to say that. I always bake with unsalted butter. Yep. You can use salted, but like in this recipe, I'm not adding salt or anything, so you wouldn't have any control over if it gets salty. So unsalted butter is what I use. And I don't even think I have that in the recipe, so that's something I should add to clarify. It's not going to hurt it if you use salted, but. Okay, so 1 egg. I usually try to crack it in a separate bowl, just because my lucky shell will get in there and then I can't dig it out. It's really hard to get a shell out of yellow cake mix, so. And then butter, the unsalted. And you know what? I didn't set a timer for that.
Yes. I was just asking, did you set a timer?
No, and I don't know how here. I'm guessing it might be another 3 minutes or so. Timer, and then just 3. Over here. Yep, and start. Okay. I'll check it at 3 minutes. 3 hours. Oh yeah, we don't need 3 hours. Yeah, I'll be sleeping in 3 hours. Wake up. She's still going? All right. Now you could just plop the butter in there. I do sometimes just slice it up. Seems like it mixes in better.
Okay. Room temperature butter?
Room temperature. Yeah, I haven't done anything other than just have it sitting out here. And so then it's just soft. I think they say about 70, 72 degrees in your home is what's going to get your butter softened at a really good temperature. That's too hot for me in my house. My house usually at like 68, 69, but okay. Check on the caramels over here. And that milk in there you can see is really starting to get kind of a caramely. They're getting smaller. My sister did these earlier with her granddaughter, and I can't remember at what point she lost interest, but at some point she's 4 and the kids will help for a little while on this one. I think it's gonna be okay. Okay, so now I'm gonna mix up the yellow cake mix and the butter and the 1 egg. Or do that surely. Yep, yellow cake mix, 1 egg, and the 8 tablespoons of softened unsalted butter. Now, I have actually done this lately using melted butter, the 1 stick of melted butter. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be softened. It can be melted. This part goes a lot faster than if it's melted. In the end, you end up with the same thing, but. I kind of think it's not going to do anything, but I let it go long enough here. We end up with a pretty good dough. So how about if you guys share with us in the comments, like your favorite brownie bar, blondie? Do you like brownies that are frosted? Plain brownies? I like plain brownies with powdered sugar on them. I think I got that from going to Casey's gas station. I like a chocolate chip blondie too. Gooseberry, is it Gooseberry Patch? Gooseberry Patch, the company that has some recipe books and things. They have a recipe online for a chocolate chip blondie that
my mom makes these bars called goose butter bars.
Goose butter bars?
Yeah, so good.
So what's in them?
I couldn't tell you. No idea. But I've made them. But they're so good. they're yellow.
They're yellow. Okay.
Yeah.
We do have one at Brownies topped with marshmallow cream.
Ooh. So do you put the marshmallow cream on when they're warm?
That's a good question.
Okay, I'm taking it out. Can I set it on this? Well,
Yep.
I'll put the pot under, but I don't want to crack anything. Okay.
You said yes, baked in, the marshmallow cream baked in. And then
Okay.
There's a blonde brownies that uses melted butter to make a caramel base to start.
Oh, that sounds good too. All right, so I took the brownie layer out of the oven. I remember they were 6 minutes. I forgot to set the timer, so I don't know for sure if we went over, but you know, they're not baked yet, so they're very soft. So you're gonna take a cup of the semi-sweet chips, or less or more, whatever you want, and just sprinkle them over the top. Make sure you get the corners. My sister loves the corners, and so I make sure that they all have caramel and chocolate chips for people who love corners and edges. I love middles, so. I kind of do my hand first just to sort of make sure I have them in the spots that I want. And then you just kind of make sure if you have any little empty spots. You don't want to have a bite without chocolate chips. Okay. You're gonna get nice and warm in there. This is where we want to melt the caramel over the top. They're not quite ready yet. At home, I probably am doing this a little bit hotter, but I'm, you know, paying closer attention to it since I'm not talking. I just don't want to burn this tonight because I did not bring a spare pack of caramels.
So how many years have you been making this recipe?
Oh man, I was trying to think about that today too, and this particular one, I feel like it's maybe been 5 years or so. So not that terribly long. I submitted the recipe in, I think it was like a year ahead of when it was printed, so probably 2019. And I'd maybe been making it for a few years before that. And then when I happened to see that they had a holiday potluck contest, I thought, well, who wouldn't want to bring these to a holiday potluck? And, you know, very self-taught, baked with my grandma some in her kitchen. But I make cheesecake, all kinds of cheesecake, but I mean, I just don't do fancy things. All right, now look at this. So you don't think this is gonna happen, but this will happen. It'll turn into a nice dough. And so it's almost like Play-Doh, is what it's like. That's what you want to look for.
What's your favorite cheesecake to make?
To make?
Or to eat or make?
Okay.
What?
Right. So I love vanilla cheesecake. With like a fresh strawberry or any kind of fresh berries that I like, mostly strawberries. Let's see. I love the Reese's peanut butter cup one because I use a salty pretzel crust on the bottom. So it's kind of that salty and sweet and peanut butter. We've had that in our family a lot. Andy's mint. But if I had to choose one, I would sit down with a big slice of vanilla cheesecake with fresh strawberries.
Talk about your taco cheesecake.
Oh, well, obviously that had to be my sister.
No, that's just me.
Oh, I was gonna say, that's my sister Callie's favorite is the taco cheesecake. Yeah, it's you know, your regular cheesecake ingredients, but it's savory. So you have your cream cheese, and the egg, but then you're adding taco seasoning and some shredded cheeses, like I think there's some pepper jack and cheddar in there. And the bottom is just a little layer of cornmeal. So it's kind of a cornmeal crust. And then we serve it with crackers and taco chips, and it's a great little appetizer. Yeah, I want to try to come up with some more savory ones. I keep a journal or a notebook where I put all these ideas of things that I want to make or that I think of, and there's some savory ones on there. I was thinking a fun brunch type one would be, you know, if you're serving like a breakfast brunch or something, it might be kind of neat. Okay. I'm pretty particular. I really just want it to be smooth and not have any of the chunks of caramel in there. So, you know, it seems a little.
Do the chips melt faster than the cubes?
Do the chips?
Like if you use caramel chips, do they melt faster than?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, they do.
Have you ever made your own caramel to put in this?
No. But, okay, here's the thing. I interviewed this Paula Sabores. I'm probably butchering her name, but just a delight. She's from Argentina, but she lives in the cities and opened her own Argentinian bakery. And so she was telling me how they use dulce de leche and everything. And I have not tried that. I'm thinking try it in here instead of the caramel. So if anybody's had dulce de leche, tell me if you think it would work in here.
Yes, it would.
It would. Okay. All right, so it's all melted. I don't know where it is, but you'll be able to see it when I'm just kind of pouring it over the chocolate chips. I do the edges and the corners first to make sure we have good caramel over to the edges and the corners. Then just sprinkle it around. You'll have a few bare spots, but you know, as this is baking, it's gonna be completely covered with caramel.
So no spreading, right? Because your chips are on the top there.
Yeah, no, I don't spread it in this part. And I'm one of those people who tries to scrape every last bit of everything. And I don't think about it until now people are watching me and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get everything out of here.
When you're at home, do you like the spoons between steps? And
No,
stuff?
and I don't even eat cookie dough. No. Okay, beautiful. All right, so we have our yellow dough. The kids would love to probably do this part here, but this is where we're going to take part of this yellow dough. We're going to layer this over the top of the caramel. Then we're going to bake it for 6 minutes. While that's in the oven, we're going to melt down those chocolate chips because that's going to go over the yellow. And then over the top of that chocolate melted stuff that we put there, we're going to put the rest of the yellow, the rest of the chocolate, and we're going to bake it for half an hour until it's a 7-pound pan of brownies.
How many layers total?
So we have the brownie, the chocolate chips, the caramel, the yellow. Then we're going to do this other chocolate, and then the yellow and the chocolate back on. So is that 6 or 7?
You should call it like a 7 by 7 brownie.
7-pound, 7-layer brownie.
Yeah.
7 pound, 7 layer.
Yeah.
7th heaven brownie.
I like that. Yeah, when Taste of Home print, or when they take your recipe and say you won, we're going to put you in a magazine, they can at that point change anything they want on it. So they changed the name. So in the magazine, it was called Two-Tone Brownies, I think. Online, I think they call it Cake Mix Brownies. So they have 2 different names for it, and they're not the same as what I call them. But they also changed the baking time to 20 to 25 minutes at the end, and that's really not enough. So if you happen to see it there and bake it there, the baking time has to be 30 minutes at the end for most ovens anyway. Otherwise, they're just not going to be done. All right, so I'm going to save, I think I usually say half the dough, but I usually don't like to have that much. I usually do about this, probably about a half a cup again, maybe a little more. I'll shove that part over there. So about this as much is what I'm going to save to put on the top. So all the rest of this, I'm now going to use just my hands and flatten. That's why I'm like, it's like Play-Doh. Just kind of flatten it out. Again, I go to the corners first, sort of lightly press it down. It doesn't really need to be, but you're just going to kind of layer it in there. It doesn't have to be perfect. People don't see this, these are tucked inside the layers. Oh, it smells really good. Mm-hmm. These brownies freeze really well too. So when you have this big, huge pan of brownies, you're like, what am I supposed to do with all this? If you're not going to share it, it does freeze really well. But you don't want to store these in the refrigerator and then think we can take them out and cut them up because that caramel gets too hard. They do need to be, served at room temperature. But you can put them in the freezer or put half the pan in the freezer and,
You just put them back in the oven then to warm them back up so you can cut them? After they're in the freezer? Or?
No, I just usually pull them out and just set them on the counter. They just need to get back to room temperature. So, okay. This is what this looks like now. And I'm gonna put it back in the oven. This time I'm gonna remember to turn on the timer. We're gonna do another 6 minutes on this. Time. Oh, I did the wrong thing. Okay. I want to clear off the. Okay. 6 minutes. Thank you. Okay. So now they're gonna get even more gooey. And we have our yellow and our brown. And remember a little while ago, when we had a little extra time, we prepped up those milk chocolate chips, 1 tablespoon of butter, and a can of sweetened condensed milk. So this is what it looks like in the pan. And I'll point out this little thing of butter because sometimes I forget to put this butter in here. And this, it gets a little stiff. And then I think, why is it like that? And then I remember, oh yeah, Stacey, you have to put in that tablespoon of butter. It does make a difference. It helps soften it up a little bit. So we're going to go back here. And as we all know, chocolate chips burn very quickly as well, and there's nothing you can do to come back from that. And so just be really, really careful with the time. But now at this point, you're just waiting for your pan to be done in that 6 minutes, so you don't really need to do anything else except kind of keep an eye on these. Sometimes I'm ahead of the game and these are already melting, like starting to melt when I put that part in the oven. So it just depends if you have to take a break to get another glass of wine or something like that when you're baking.
I think we got some vodka in the freezer.
What?
So we have some vodka in the freezer.
Vodka. Also, so much of it is for baking. I have orange creamsicle cheesecake that's really good. And I make like a little sauce that goes over the top. And I'm trying to think what kind of liquor it has in it. It's not vodka, not tequila. The key lime one has tequila, but yeah. Oh, the Grand Marnier. Yeah. That might be what it is, because I have a bottle of it and I don't use it for, yeah. Di Serono is what I buy a lot of and don't drink it. I mean, I like it, but I just don't. But I use it in some of my bundt cakes, like a yellow, what's the one I just made? I don't even remember what I made it for, but it uses like a half a cup of Di Serono in it.
So all of your recipes and stuff, are they on your blogs, or are they all just on different blogs to go look at?
No, most all of my recipes and most of what I've been talking about tonight, if I've said that it's something that I've made, those blondies are a gooseberry patch recipe that I find on their website, but otherwise all my recipes are online. I freely share. I figure we all should just be in the kitchen baking, so.
Well, I had somebody ask if you would share your taco cheesecake recipe.
Yep, that's on my website. Yeah, yep. Randomsweets.com. Mm-hmm. Yep, and you can certainly switch out the cheese that's in there. Like I said, it's taco seasoning and I think a taco sauce, maybe a salsa or and green chilies. But you know, you can really adjust that if you don't want green chilies in there. If you want to use a different shredded cheese, it's, you know, as long as you're doing your basic cream cheese and the amount of eggs that you need, some of those other ingredients use the same amount, but you can use different things. So if you would want to use like a green sauce, like a salsa verde, instead of the red sauce, switch that stuff up. All right. So can you see on this camera then? Can you see the chocolate? Is this camera? Okay.
Yes.
So this is what that looks like now. The sweetened condensed milk, a little bit of butter, and milk chocolate chips. And we're all caught up on that, so good. Do you guys do dishes as you cook or as you bake?
My husband does.
Your husband does it as he's cooking and he's cleaning, or he does your dishes? Nice.
I just leave them unless I have to use it again.
Okay.
I just leave them. So mainly because I don't like doing dishes, but
right. I kind of go in between, but I usually just kind of set it off to the side and wash them at the end.
Is your taco cheesecake recipe under cheesecake or under meals and sides?
It's probably under cheesecake, but if you go to the search tab, there should be a little search up at the top on the right hand side and just put in taco cheesecake.
Okay.
It should be up there. Yeah.
Put it in the log for people.
Oh. Yeah. And you can see again, it's not, they're definitely not cooked, but this just kind of sets up each of those layers so that at the end, you know, all these layers are going to be able to cook nicely in that 30 minutes. Okay, I'm going to quick wash my hands. So now comes, this must be layer number 5, if we're counting. This kind of reminds me of the fillings sometimes that candy bars will have in it. You know, so it's more than just melted chocolate. That sweetened condensed milk gives it such a creaminess. This is a very generous amount. It's not gonna scrape my pan, but sure those corners and edges get in there. And you know, I don't know, I've never done it in the microwave. Some people just tend to use their microwave more for melting stuff. I suppose some of this you could, but you'd have to really keep an eye on it. Okay, I do usually keep kind of a little spatula on this part, just, you know, everything will spread out once it's in the oven, but I like to just see that there's no exposed yellow batter in there. And remember, it's not cooked under there, so you have to do this pretty lightly, otherwise you'll kind of have a mess, but nobody sees this layer either, so it's okay. And even if it was a mess, it's okay. It's still gonna bake and taste wonderful. All right, now we're at the end. I typically start with the extra chocolate cake stuff that was left. And, you know, do the same thing as you did with the yellow. And just do little bits and parts. So,
I did have someone said to not forget about your bacon cheesecake.
oh yeah, that's right. It's a bacon Gouda. Don't we love Gouda? Yeah, I haven't made that one as much as the tacos, so I forget. I think I did that when I worked on something with the Hungry for Truth, the ag partners in South Dakota, and then published that on their website. But it is on my website as well. If you search for like pigskin cheesecake, I think you'll find it under that.
So another savory one then.
Yeah. Thanks. I forgot about that one. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same with the yellow. And just find spots and put them in there. We're doing on time. Okay. I feel like I was hurrying because I didn't want to go way over time here, but we're doing okay. Because this is the end now, and they bake for 30 minutes. So we're really just going to be opening up to questions and talking at this point. We're being done and waiting for the brownies to bake in the oven.
Have you ever tried different flavors of cakes mix?
No, but that would be really good. I would say anything that would go with caramel, or if you want to do the dulce de leche. I don't know if I'm saying it right,
yes.
But I'll get it. Yeah, you could mix and match. Think about some of those.
Like a red velvet or
yeah,
like a chocolate.
Some of the spice cakes. I wasn't paying attention.
Like gingerbread at Christmas time,
Or like mix coconut into the caramel.
Mix coconut into the caramel. I wasn't watching what I was doing, and I kind of missed a little. Actually, over here, got carried away. But that's the thing, you guys. Just, you know, look at some of the recipes that you make, and if it has a certain kind of chip, like we could probably do this. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would try it because I love butterscotch. Instead of the milk chocolate chips, use butterscotch chips. That might be really good. Peanut butter chips. Yeah, so just think about some of the recipes that you have and switch out a few ingredients, and it makes it a whole different thing. You just have to stick with sort of some of the basic parts of a recipe, but baking is, I know, more of a science, people say, but well, I flunked art class, but that's kind of evident here. Science, you know, probably okay, but I follow the main things that need to be followed with the salts and the baking powders and the measurements for those, but just don't be scared of it. Okay, I'm gonna put these back in the oven because now they're ready and they'll just kind of meld together. Now this is the last baking time, and so this is where they go for 30 minutes at 350 degrees. The oven's been on 350 degrees all night, but this last step is the 30-minute step where the top will start to get just lightly browned. You wouldn't want it, yeah, you wouldn't want it to be any more brown than these are. Otherwise they'll kind of start to get hard. So
Do you test anything in the middle?
no, I just go by the lightly browned on the top. And they take a few hours to cool down. Like, don't think you know, I'll make box brownies sometimes. And you just dig into it like 10 minutes after they come out of the oven, basically with a spoon. But these, it would be hard to do that. So I want to show you, my mom bought me this big, huge pizza cutter. And I don't really make pizzas, but she said, I think you could cut your bars with that. And so when I'm making them to sell to people, because I've done that lots of times, people have bought a can of these from me. I'll measure it with a measure, mark it on the paper, and then cut it so that they're pretty precisely the same square. I'm not going to worry about the measuring tonight, but these do slice through pretty nice, just like that. But otherwise, I just use like a chef's knife.
Fancy thing here.
I did the one with the cover just because I was carrying it with me today. But
What are these knives called? Like this
It's
here?
a pizza cutter.
Pizza cutter?
do you have these here?
Yep.
Yeah. So Kirsten has them down here. Yeah, but a regular chef's knife, it works fine too. You guys saw that. I just so there's a corner. So. And so these are all the, I don't know, can I do it under here?
Yeah, we can go back under that.
Okay, so I can kind of show all the layers. You can see it. Tell me if I need to move it.
Go up just a little bit, closer to the camera.
Okay, like
There
this.
you go, perfect, yeah.
So now you can see the 7 layers. And they get nice and solid. I mean, they're gooey inside, but they're not like a gooey mess. So if you're serving these at a potluck, bringing them to a summer picnic, they'll start to get warm and soft, which is a good thing. So
I did have a question of what you're doing with all these brownies after the show.
some of these are going to YouTube. This pan, I think I'm going to put in the car. I don't know for sure what I'm doing with them yet. I've never had 2 pans of these to try to figure out what to do with. So if you guys have ideas or addresses. Oh yeah, I could do that. Do you want me to?
Fine by me.
Yeah. So this pan that is finished here and ready, I'll cut the rest of these up, or I'll just give them to Kirsten. You can decide the size that you want to cut them. But if you want to come down to the carrot seed the next couple of days or until they're gone, come in and have a little sample of them down here at the Carrot Seed on Main Avenue. What's the address?
It was 310 Main.
310 Main in Brookings. So I'm sorry if you're in Minneapolis or Fargo. I'll be in Minneapolis tomorrow. Okay. Well, anything else? I don't want to make people stay online. If
Sure. Well, why don't we open it up to any questions anybody has?
yeah, or comments or just fun stories. If you guys have fun stories to tell me.
And we can unmute people if they would like to ask themselves too. So
Yeah.
please feel free to unmute yourself if you'd rather. It says there are edge people and there are center bar people. Someone would be curious to know people's preference. I'm a center. Are you an edge?
I'm a center, except some things I'm an edge. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And someone asked if you have a calorie count on these.
I don't. I don't. And I wish that I did, because it would be nice to know if you have, a smaller one, and how much is that going to be and how many sugars for a day. So I'm not at the point in my business or blogging yet where I can have a nutritionist do that for me, but I really would love to at some point, but I don't have an answer for that.
Someone says that they have a pan that specifically makes only edges.
Oh, I've seen those. It's like a little maze thing, right? Okay. Well, then you're obviously an edge person. I'm a middle person, so I'd rather have something that only has the middle. And that way with lasagna too. I like the middle.
Yes, most of them cheesier.
And I like the crispy cheese on the side or something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
What's the favorite recipe in your own home that you cook that people love?
Around the holidays, my son Sajan and my nephew, for sure Garrett, and then I can't remember if Trav and Cody, but I have a pumpkin chocolate chip cookie that's soft and cakey, and they really don't allow me to show up without those. Cream cheese sugar cookies, so they're very soft. They're the cutout kinds. But that one I use almond extract instead of vanilla, and they're just, that's in the inside and on the frosting on top with the almond extract. And those are a family favorite. My husband likes my key lime pie, which I love that too. Again, I use a pretzel and brown sugar crust. And so it gets a little salty and kind of cuts that tang in the middle.
Are these all on your website?
Yes, the key lime pie is on there. The pumpkin chocolate chip cookies are on there. Cream cheese, yep, they're all on there.
Is there a way on, because I see you have a bunch of social media stuff too for, is there a way if people are making one of your recipes that they can send you a message if they had a question? Is there a messenger on all your social stuff?
Yes, so I mean, if somebody's in the middle of making something and uses maybe Instagram or email, my email is on my website, but I do check those often enough and have the alerts come up that I think I would notice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Someone also said caramel apple bars are a favorite.
Oh, so that was Callie, my sister Callie. Yep, because those are a favorite. Those have oatmeal, and again, you're melting caramels for that one and slicing up. I do a mix of Granny Smith and Honeycrisp apples in that one, and then top it again with some oatmeal. You know, and those are on my blog. A lot of bars. I love, I mean, there's a lot of everything on there, but when I really think about some of the stuff that we love, we like the bars.
I would agree that it's probably like a very Midwestern thing, like bars. I grew up in the South.
So is it?
So,
see that? Okay.
And there's not a ton of bars that would come to events and stuff in there. Lots of pies and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
We'd see more of.
Yeah.
But these look delicious. Like, but I see it a lot more in things like blondies. Do you see a lot of blondies at events and stuff like that? But yeah, these look huge and definitely any sort of chocolate lover stream.
Right. Right. Yeah, like I said, since I have always been here and not really been in other places to experience the culture of coming to a potluck or a family reunion or something where people are bringing food to share, we've just kind of grown up on bars being kind of a thing. Yeah.
Someone said grandma's sugar cookies that were in the South Dakota magazine.
Yes, that was really sweet because that was my first ever magazine article. So I've been addicted ever since then for writing for magazines. I love it. I love telling people stories and the people that I get to meet. But the very first one I did was with my grandma Janet. And she has these white sugar cookies that are always the perfectly round size. They're an old-fashioned recipe where you use sour cream and you add a little bit of actually baking soda. Hers has baking soda, but it does the same thing as the cream of tartar where it kind of expands it and white and airy. And the cookies they're not rich. They're not too sweet. They have sugar sprinkled on the top. And so this year I hosted Christmas, and that was like the one thing on the list. If I don't have time for anything else, those cookies have to be at Christmas, and those are on the blog too. Grandma Janet's white sugar cookies.
Someone asked, do you ship what you sell? Like, do you make and ship things? And do you have favorite blogs that you follow?
I don't ship things. I did one time to Madison, so that wasn't that far away. I just don't know how. I haven't perfected, like, how do you do it right and get there fresh and all those things. Things like this, I certainly would. We'd be able to figure that out. But favorite blogs. I Am Baker. That's Amanda from up in the cities. She's a hoot. She's really funny, and her food is very down home. You know, baking bars and pastas and hot dishes and things like that. And she doesn't apologize for it. You know, a Farm Girls Dabbles. If you know Brenda Score, she is a South Dakota native. I think her parents still live up by Watertown on the lake. She's up in the cities, but a Farm Girls Dabbles is her blog, and that's very Midwest. Love everything that's on her blog, and she's really nice.
I'm putting these all in the chat.
Yeah, so I Am Baker and A Farm Girls Dabbles are a couple that I'll go to and look for things when I want to make something. I'm not thinking off the top of my head what some of the others are, but there's a lot. I love them. And I'm one of those people too who sometimes I don't want to read all about anything. I want to just jump to the recipe. So as I'm working on putting my new blog together, that'll be part of it. It'll have the jump to recipe. So if you don't want to read anything about it, and I get that, I'm that way too sometimes.
When do you have a timeline for your new blog that you anticipate it being done?
Well, I don't know for sure because it's at the point now where I got a whole bunch of new graphics from Pie in the Sky Studios in Sioux Falls. Bobby did a great job, so I'm super excited to start putting out some little teasers for that. But now that I have that, I'm ready to give to some web work, and I don't know what their timeline will be.
And will this all be accessible from what's the best way to do it? Social media to find about it, or your website? Which one would be the easiest one to find?
Well, Instagram, I don't post every day right now, but I think that'll change as time goes here, and I have a little bit more happening on the blog and then starting a podcast. But Instagram, and I have Facebook, Random Sweets Facebook. And you can subscribe to my blog too. That way you'll get an email when I do post something new.
What's your Instagram handle?
At Random Sweets. I think everything's at Random Sweets now. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Pinterest. Oh my gosh, you guys, do you spend 1 million hours on Pinterest? I do. Now I'm looking for everything gardening. Dreaming about gardening.
It's probably, I think it's just like 27 days until the sun doesn't set, till it's springtime. It feels like it's springtime. So
I need spring to come and the sun.
I did put your Instagram up there too for people.
Okay, thank you. So. Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love to follow people back if they don't mind, and it's fun to see what people are doing, and yeah.
Do you have any questions? I think for us, just thank you. Thanks for coming and sharing your passion with us. And Stacy is super approachable, which is really great. And so I know that if people have questions, please reach out to her. And if you can't find her information, send a message to us at the Arts Council and we'll be able to forward all that to you. Here in the next 2 days, this recording along with that recipe will be both up on our website at the Arts Council as well as Kirsten's at the Carrot Seed blog. So you'll be able to see all that kind of stuff. And this video will be on our YouTube channel as well. So you can click on it and watch and cook along if you want.
So I can go home in a couple days and have some popcorn and watch my video.
Absolutely. Or some bars.
Woo, but yeah, I need some wine and some of that vodka, some of Grand Marnier and whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah. Our next one is on March 15th, and Marcel is going to be, and she's cooking a traditional dish of hers, and it should be amazing as well. And then we will round out the season with Piran from the Children's Museum, and hers is in April. So we're looking for we've had some really amazing chefs, and we'll continue these free online demonstrations for people to hopefully inspire them to get out and cook themselves. So take a bite on the screen, right? Yeah.
This is yeah. These classes are a great idea. So thank you both for. I know it takes a lot of work and organization and your space and your time, and it's night. So thank you for doing these to the community, and thank you guys, everybody, for showing up tonight. And find me on social media and message me if you have questions. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you for spending the night with us.
These are delicious. Really good. So
yeah. All right.
Thanks everybody.
Yeah, you don't need huge ones, I guess, right? I mean, but